What is going on, trainers? DrumVillain here, bringing some more Pokemon Go Battle League PvP content, and today we're talking about an Ultra League team, and specifically a really interesting say swap that exists in this meta that I think is underrated, underutilized, and that is going to be Shadow Ampharos. Now you can use regular Ampharos if you want, and we're running Brutal Swing and Focus Blast just because we can do this. Some things aren't expecting it. Bang! Absolutely beautiful. So Ampharos is able to get switch advantage for us, which means we get Machamp lined up with our Virizion instead, and then we've got our Registeel away from the Machamp and lined up with Cresselia. So we're in a hard loss situation. We have Virizion on the lead, lined up with Cresselia, which is a bad matchup for Virizion. We had Ampharos lined up with a ground-type Steelix, terrible situation, and then we would have had Registeel lined up with Machamp. And we're still able to take a win in this game just because Ampharos is able to just focus blast its way through and really surprise opponents. And that's the big issue with dealing with Ampharos, is you don't know what moveset this thing's going to be running. Like I said, we're opting for Brutal Swing and Focus Blast, which gives us coverage on the Ghost types, gives coverage on Dark types, gives coverage on Steel types, a lot of coverage across the meta in general, but you can also have Thunder Punch for extra coverage on waters like Jellicent and flyers like Charizard. You can choose to have Dragon Pulse to have extra coverage against Dragonites and even Giratina if you decided not to run Brutal Swing, because Brutal Swing is the better move for that situation. Also got Power Gem, Zap Cannon. None of these moves are bad on Ampharos, and the only move I wouldn't recommend you use is Thunder, because if you're building up to Thunder, I recommend you have Zap Cannon instead for the attack debuff and the extra damage. Everything else has play depending on what you're pairing it up with, what position on the team you want it in, and what kind of coverage you're looking for from it. So as a say swap, for this team in particular, we're choosing Brutal Swing and Focus Blast, but honestly, use a lot of different movesets on this thing. Go out there, have some fun with this thing. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. It is very, very strong. Now, fast move wise, you're going to want Volt Switch, because your only other option is Charge Beam, and Charge Beam absolutely sucks balls. But Volt Switch is very, very good as an electric fast move in general. I believe it's the equivalent of Shadow Claw. It's just 4 turns instead of 2, but you're still getting that same level of damage and energy generation with just a little bit less turn-to-turn flexibility for like swapping out and catching charge moves, etc. So, taking a look at the full team, we're running Virizion on the lead with Sacred Sword and Leaf Blade. Once again, we're skipping the Stone Edge, and I could argue either way about Stone Edge at this point. There are a lot of tough situations where Stone Edge is very useful, and also this team can be a little vulnerable to Charizard on the lead, and having that extra move just to threaten and force its way through and get a charge move off on it can be very, very useful, because there were times when I was shields down against the Charizard, would have had the energy to get a Stone Edge off on it, and just didn't have the move. So I've lost some games for not having Stone Edge, but also Sacred Sword and Leaf Blade is still fantastic coverage for pretty much anything that's not Talonflame and Charizard. And rounding out the lineup is everyone's favourite Slappy Ball, Registeel. And again, I can't recommend this Pokemon highly enough with Focus Blast, Zap Cannon. Flash Cannon I would have recommended more before the slight nerf to Trevenant. They are still out there, but they're a bit less common, so Registeel's a little bit safer not having the Flash Cannon coverage for being able to hit Trevenant for neutral damage. Now, if you don't like Registeel, don't want to use Registeel, don't have a Registeel, use Melmetal instead, because Rock Slide, Thunder Shock is a fantastic combination that outpaces Charizard to Blast Burn, hugely improved matchup compared to Registeel, a little bit weaker versatility across the board in general, but Melmetal's still very strong in the Ultra League meta in general, and like I said, if you really need that Charizard matchup, Melmetal is the way to go. So, subscribe if you haven't already. My analytics show that only about 18% of you guys are subscribed, which absolutely makes Ampharos pull this face. But let's go ahead and take a look at the team, some battles, and how it actually plays out in the Ultra League. Also, a quick note, my two legendaries here, Virizion and Registeel, are not good PvP IVs. They're just relatively from raids that I caught. I haven't traded them to get that attack lower. If you have them traded to get that attack stat lower so you can level them up higher, that is preferable, but this team works just fine without that. So, a lower Mutt lead. Pretty tough for Virizion because those poison jabs are going to absolutely shred you, but we're going to swap straight into Ampharos, and we're just going to see if we can get shields here. We're building up to the Focus Blast before we throw the Brutal Swings, and we're going to get shield baited here with an Acid Spray, which is absolutely terrible for us, but we do have 2 Brutal Swings here, so we're just going to throw one, see if we can get that second shield out of them, which we do, and then we overtap and get farmed down before we throw the second one. We wouldn't have knocked them out with that Brutal Swing anyway, but we'd have got them a lot lower, which would have been much, much nicer. But either way, we're going to bring in Virizion here. just take this move because we're figuring they had some energy. It might have been a Dark Pulse, might have been Acid Spray, which either way isn't a problem for Virizion. Just get rid of that energy, then swap to Registeel and start getting ahead on energy. They swap into Charizard. Because we've got like 2 lock-ons worth of energy, they can't beat us to a Blast Burn. We one-shot them with Zap Cannon, and now we've got another Zap Cannon ready for the War Rain in the back. There is not much his opponent can do. Registeel is absolutely on a rampage here, going to be absolutely shredding this opponent. And if they do, for some reason, outpace us here to another Earthquake and take us out, Virizion is now set up to finish this game out very, very comfortably. They're just going to throw an Icicle Spear there. We're going to swap aggressively into a Virizion, farm down, throw the Sacred Sword on the Muck, and job is absolutely a good one, and it's going to be a GG. Would definitely been a bit more comfortable if we had thrown that second Brutal Swing, sorry, the third one, at the Muck just to get a little bit more damage, but it doesn't really matter. We're still able to take the win. Also, the 2 Pokemon they had in the back, Warren and Charizard, both very weak to Ampharos. So there are a lot of ways that matchup played out where we were going to have a lot of play against those Pokemon in the back. And even though we used up Ampharos on the Muck, which is arguably a big mistake if you look at their overall lineup, it meant we could get shields and then Zap Cannon, Registeel could just sweep through the rest of the game. Now, this matchup, we got a pretty iffy lead. Warrain's pretty neutral lead for Virizion. I'd prefer to swap out just because both Ampharos and Registeel have better matchups there. So we swap out to the Ampharos, we drag out Dragon Breath Giratina, and we're going to be able to get 2 shields out of him here because Shadow Ampharos with the Volt Switches and the Brutal Swings can 2-shot a Giratina if it underestimates you, which is very, very nice. And one of the reasons that I do recommend the Shadow slightly over a regular Ampharos. So now we've got shield advantage in this matchup, and we know they've got Warrain, we know they've got some health left on the Giratina, and here's a Cresselia that for some reason swaps in aggressively to meet our Registeel. Maybe they're worried about us getting too far ahead on energy, but I'm not going to stress about this situation. We're definitely happy to keep Cresselia away from our Virizion, so we're just going to stay with Registeel, start spamming some Zap Cannons, and take them out. And then the Giratina as well on this opponent's team is quite a bit lower. It's quite low, so there's a chance that Virizion can still handle it with just Leaf Blade, even without having that Stone Edge as well. So we're not looking too shabby here. Should throw the Zap Cannon, they should take out Cresselia, see what the opponent wants to do. We're undercharge it a little bit, but it doesn't make a difference. We just take them out regardless. There's the Warrain. This might be an Earthquake. It might not be. Okay, we're going to be ballsy about it. It's an Icicle Spear. Okay, definitely not. And we're going to go ahead, no-shield the Icicle Spear, throw the Zap Cannon into the Giratina that's going to swap in, and now the damage is definitely done for the opponent. We've still got a shield in this situation. And if they take us out here, which they don't quite, it's still a Dragon Claw, and we just nerfed their attack. We can farm them down with Virizion, which you've never seen a Giratina get farmed down with a fighting move before, but here we go. Farm it all the way down. Now we've got 2 charge moves to spam into this Warrain. Definitely going to be GG's here. No way they can take these without any shields. First one comes through, big damage. Second one coming through, we're going to finish them off, and it's going to be a good game. Now, the opponent could have made that matchup a lot better for themselves by not swapping Cresselia aggressively into Registeel. They're just staying with Giratina against Registeel, then bring in Warrain to do what it can, save Cresselia for my Virizion, and they'd have been looking quite a bit more cushy there. Right, Ampharos lead from the opponent, Shadow Ampharos. This is great for Virizion because you resist the Thunder Punch, you resist the Brutal Swing, you would resist Power Gem if for some reason they were running it. Dragon Pulse isn't that threatening because it's not stab, so it's really just Focus Blast you have to worry about in that situation, and it does do a lot of damage. If you take a Focus Blast on Virizion, it's going to hit like a truck, you know? Like Ampharos is a little bit attack weighted, it's just going to hit hard. It's a crazy hard hitting move. But we figure if they're staying with Ampharos in such a bad matchup there against our Virizion, they must also be weak in the back. So we swap out to Registeel, and we were kind of expecting to pull something like Swampert out, but also Ampharos would still have been the better safe swap in this position against the Mandibuzz. And then if we'd have pulled out the Swampert, you're looking a little bit better with those Brutal Swing spams, because here we're going to risk getting mud-shotted down. The opponent's going to throw last second. I think they lost track of our energy and we're unsure how close we were. So the next Focus Blast, but that's a little bit of a saving grace. They swap Mandibuzz back into our Virizion, which isn't the best matchup because this Mandibuzz is running Snarl rather than... what's the name of the move? Air Slash. It's running Snarl and not Air Slash, which would massively improve the matchup in Mandibuzz's favour, but still, we're happy to line Ampharos up with that thing instead. Virizion against Swampert is very cut and dry. No Swamperts in the Ultra League are running Sludge Wave, and that's just going to be a GG there. And this is the set where I actually got my starting ELO in the Ultra League. This is from about a week ago. This set, I've been meaning to make more videos in the last couple of weeks Ultra League's been in, and I've just been too swamped to really get back on the horse properly. But we're here now, making the video. Here's a starting ELO. I believe it's 2258. Very, very solid starting ELO for me. I'm quite happy with that. If you're curious on my win rate to give me that starting ELO, it was 116 wins out of 175 matches, so a 66% win rate up to that point. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at some more matchups. In this game, we've got Rayquaza, whatever you want to call this damn thing, lined up with our Virizion. We're going to swap out into Ampharos. And they're going to stay in just to throw enough Dragon Tails to put us into single Stone Edge range, which is a very scary situation. And they shield up the Focus Blast, which also not good for us. We do get a shield advantage at this point, which we could take. We could just take the shield advantage, bring in Virizion, work on the Regirock, and just hope that Registeel can sweep the rest of this game. But we choose to shield up 2 Stone Edges and go for more charge moves. Now we're going for a Brutal Swing bait, which is risky, and it doesn't pay off. They're choosing to take shield advantage in this situation. So we're going to go for another Brutal Swing. They could shield this up and take switch advantage if they want. They don't, they let it go. So now we've got switch advantage. There's an Ampharos in the back, which we know is going to be fantastic for Virizion to deal with in general, unless they got Focus Blast. And we can bring in Registeel against the Rayquaza, which we can farm down entirely. We're just going to lock it on down. No point throwing a charge move here. It's low enough. We're just going to take these charge moves. Even if it nerfs our attack, their Shadow Ampharos is not going to want to see Focus Blast, whether our attack's been dropped 2 stages or 3 stages or whatever. Doesn't matter. So just keep locking on, get him down. And here comes Ampharos. Go for Zap Cannon. We're probably going to get that last shield out of him, no matter what. And we do. Okay. We don't get the attack debuff, so there's not the best scenario, but we're still looking pretty good. We're in the 0 shield, as long as they don't have Focus Blast, which they do. There goes Registeel. Okay, this is kind of scary. We want to get some damage off ASAP. We're kind of trying to line up the charge moves as best we can to optimize energy so they don't get free Volt Switches through. We get Leaf Blade off. We're not going to quite take them out. We try to catch on our Ampharos, which we can't because it's CMP tie. Doesn't matter. Here comes Focus Blast. Doesn't quite knock us out, but you can see the immense amount of damage it does. And we can farm them down and take the win. GG. Next game, here we go. Right, Skuntank lead. Terrible for Virizion. I mean, you don't have to worry about Crunch, but they do have access to Flamethrower, which is going to ruin your day, and those Poison Jabs are going to add up. We're going to outpace into the first Sacred Sword, hit him for a nice chunk, and then swap to Ampharos and see what they want to do. It makes this matchup a bit safer for Ampharos if they choose to stay in. We're kind of depending on them swapping out because we have Brutal Swing, which is going to be resisted, but we're just racking up that Volt Switch damage here. And they have 2 Crunchers already, which I kind of underestimated just how fast these Dark and Poison types do get to that Crunch move. But we're going to farm them down entirely. We're at a 2 shield disadvantage. Jellicent comes in. That means they must be super weak to Ampharos in the back, which means it might be a bit of a shame that we actually swapped Ampharos in and maybe not Registeel and saved Ampharos for the back. But it doesn't matter. We get both those shields back, and we're not quite able to get that Brutal Swing off, and that's a little bit unfortunate because it'd been a nice big chunk of damage on this Jellicent, but we've got Registeel here, able to threaten with the Zap Cannon. They swap out to Charizard, panicking. They realise that they're going to get Zap Cannon into oblivion in the rest of this line. Here comes the Zap Cannon, bang! Charizard's gone, and Jellicent is not going to be able to keep up now with Virizion and Registeel. It's definitely over at this point, but they're going to stay in. Kudos to them. They're going to keep on fighting. We're just going to get this Zap Cannon off, and then even if they survive it, we've got Leaf Blade on Virizion to finish them off as well. And that's going to be absolutely no problem at all. In fact, we might even fast move them down. No, they don't quite get fast moved down. Doesn't matter. Go for Leaf Blade. It's all good. Does not matter. Not a big deal. GG. Okay, going back into the next matchup. Aurorus on the lead. This is great for Virizion. They're double weak to that fighting damage. Sacred Sword is going to hit them like an absolute truck. You outpace them to Weather Balls. You can survive a Weather Ball. And while they can survive a Sacred Sword, it does a damn sight more damage and puts them in farm down risk. Because you can see how much the double kicks have already added up, even with them shielding up. But they're going to swap out, catch a Sacred Sword on Trevenant. This is my mistake for trying to throw on the moves at the same time, rather than actually just throwing one more double kick and actually unaligning the fast moves to make sure we could definitely get it off on the Pokemon we wanted. We can bring in Ampharos here, and this might seem insane. What, you're bringing your Electric into the grass? But I mean, what choice do we have? We've got Registeel, which is really going to struggle. Virizion is going to really struggle without Stone Edge. And we've got Brutal Swing, which hits really bloody hard, especially from Shadow Ampharos, which we see there. Absolutely wipes them, well, doesn't quite wipe them out, They are going to get a Seed Bomb, I believe, here off, which is not quite going to take us out. No stress. Switch advantage is still ours. But shields are down. The Ampharos got ahead on energy. We're going to bring in Registeel to... because we realise we can just Focus Blast them, we can take the charge moves a lot more comfortable because Weather Ball and Meteor Beam are not very effective to Registeel. And now we're going to line up our Virizion with their Virizion. And building up to the Focus Blast and throwing that at Virizion might have been a little bit of a mistake because it's let them get ahead on so much energy that, you see, we're not going to quite take them out here. And they're going to be able to take us out here. And I believe they're also going to be able to get a Sacred Sword off on Registeel as well because they got that much energy. Whereas if we'd have just come in with our own Virizion quicker and started throwing Sacred Swords a little bit faster, we might have been in a little bit of a better situation. Because now, Ampharos is coming in and they're going to start spamming charge moves. They had a lot of energy. Meteor Beam comes through, buffs their attack, and this, if this is a Meteor Beam, it will probably just take us out. Not quite, but we're not going to make it to the Focus Blast, and they're going to take the win. So Trevenant, pretty tough for this team to deal with, but also if they'd have not caught a charge move, and if we'd have made a couple of different choices, I think we still could have won that game. So not impossible to handle, but Ampharos is actually your best choice to go in there with, as much as it might not seem like it is. Okay, Charizard lead, absolute nightmare fuel. We're going to swap in Registeel. They're going to swap out into Swampert. We're going to hit them with the Focus Blast straight out the gate. And then we can just go for another one and see if we can take them out. They are going to have to throw another Hydro Cannon to take us out before we throw this, if they want, which we're going to accept. We're going to let them take us out. We're still 2 shields apiece. And we're just going to farm them down with Virizion and get so much energy. And we're playing 5D chess here because we don't have Stone Edge, right? But what if we did have Stone Edge? We'd be doing this, wouldn't we? We'd be trying to come out of this match with as much energy as possible to throw Stone Edges at Charizard, which is probably going to come back in. So what we're doing is we're expecting them to not bring Charizard in because we've got too much energy. And it works. They bring in Drapion instead because they're too worried about the potential Stone Edges. We can spam Sacred Swords at this Drapion, put some work in, and we can line Ampharos up with the Charizard instead. So they don't realise it, but they've actually completely scuppered themselves because if they brought Charizard into this matchup, there'd have been nothing that Virizion could threaten it with. And then we'd have had Ampharos lined up with the Drapion, which, while it's a neutral matchup, the Charizard would have gained such an advantage against the Virizion that we probably would have still lost the game. But now it's all to play for because we can really put some work in this matchup. Yes, we have to worry about Blast Burn. Everything has to worry about Blast Burn. Doesn't matter. We don't have Thunder Punch. Doesn't matter. Brutal Swing is going to do enough work alongside the Volt Switchers to take them out. So we're just going to throw these charge moves. We're probably going to get... Well, we got the shields out of them and we took them out. And now Drapion's here. It's not going to take us out with one charge move, but it's not going to matter. We're going to be able to just do one more Volt Switch here. I'll finish off the Volt Switch we were throwing, throw a Brutal Swing, and even if it doesn't quite finish them off, we can swap into Virizion and then just fast move them down as well. We actually catch a move. Doesn't matter either way. The damage is done. This Crunch isn't even actually going to take us out, and the Double Kick's going to finish them off. So GG's to the opponent. Now let's talk about a different, interesting matchup that I think. Shadow Gliscor is very, very strong in the Ultra League. Underutilized, underrated, fantastic Pokemon. And you think, well, you got to get out of here because it's resisting the double kicks and you're double weak. We're double weak to the fast move here. Those wing attacks are shredding us, but resist the charge moves. This is a Night Slash, yeah. Absolutely no sweat. We don't have to worry about it. They get the attack boost. They're going to throw another Night Slash. We're going to shield up just because they got the boost. If they hadn't boosted, we could have not shielded that up and threatened them with this last Leaf Blade and probably got the shield out of them regardless. But it's worth the shield to get it off because Gliscor is a core breaker for this team if you think about it. Virizion's double weak to the fast moves. Ampharos, it's resisting the electric moves. And then Registeel just really struggles with Gliscor as well because of its typing and the fact we're not running Flash Cannon. So we really have to deal with that thing. If you see Gliscor on the lead with this team, you stay with Virizion, throw Leaf Blades. If they throw charge moves, don't shield it up. Just put what work in you can. Then bring in Ampharos and finish them off with one Brutal Swing. Should be absolutely fine. And there's a good chance their lineup in the back is weak. Bang! Oh, by the way, forgot to mention, we Focus Blaster Registeel and then the opponent surrenders. So GG's. But yeah, Gliscor, not as bad of a matchup for Virizion as it seems. Both Virizion and Ampharos can do okay in that match, but if you've got Brutal Swing on Ampharos, it's just Registeel you got to keep away from it because the fact that it gets to Earthquake when it does and its resistances and that is just really tough for Registeel to deal with. Ampharos and Virizion are going to handle it just fine. Just stay in, get it out of the way. A good chance of Gliscor lead is weak to Registeel in the back anyway, and you'll be looking pretty solid. Okay, one more set of battles for you guys, but I did miss the first match. I forgot to start recording, and it was a pretty fun match involving a golden go, to be honest, and we did win, but doesn't matter. We're going to jump into the second matchup of this set, and we got Warrain on the lead. And funnily enough, in this matchup, we actually both swap exactly at the start of the match. I guess because it's such a iffy matchup, you're both weak to each other, there's a good chance that Warrains will swap out, but also we want to swap out, because like we said, we got Ampharos and Registeel, which is very good against Warrain in general. So we end up both simultaneously swapping, and we've now got Shadow Ampharos into Galarian Weezing, which both these boys have Brutal Swing, except they're resisting Brutal Swing, we're not, but our Volt Switches are adding up a lot faster than their Fairy Winds are. So very tit for tat kind of matchup. We'll get a shield out of them with the Brutal Swing, and are we going to give up our second shield here? We decide it's worth it to see what we can do. We were thinking about going for a full farm down, but I got very nervous because Fairy Wind is very fast to get to charge moves, and I was a little anxious about them actually getting that off. So we build up to a Focus Blast against the Clefable that comes into meters, and then we swap out because we figure, right, we can bank that energy. We want to throw it against this Warrain if for some reason the Clefable would have stayed in against Registeel. Doesn't matter. Now, we get the last shield out of them. This Warren's going to get Earthquake off. Doesn't matter. We can survive. They're going to have to throw 2 Earthquakes to finish us off, which they're not going to get to in time. But also, this isn't a Shadow Warrain, and we're not a Shadow Registeel, so this won't quite KO. Gets them very, very low, though. We get the attack drop. And from this point on, the Earthquakers, and it takes us out. It might not quite. This is a little bit tough. They might farm us down. We're going to swap into Virizion aggressively. We figure we're getting messy with this end game. We're just going to wing it and see how it plays out. They throw a charge move. It's debuff, doesn't do that much damage. The Clefable comes in. We're going to get a Leaf Blade off. And we're very, very low on health here in general. This is a very, very close matchup. If we get took out here by Moonblast, we're going to Focus Blast because it's Shadow, it's Focus Blast, going to hit like a truck. They're going to get another move off here. We figure they had quite a lot of energy. Take out the Registeel, that's fine. And here comes Focus Blast. It should take them out. And then, can we survive the fast moves to take out the Warrain? We just do. Just with 1 HP and a dream, we're going to take that win. Very close game, very well played to the opponent. Really enjoyed that matchup. All right, Johnny Mio, let's line this up, let's see what's happening. Another Gliscor lead. So, like I said before, you stay in this matchup, and this Gliscor doesn't boost, and you're going to see how this matchup actually plays out. So, here comes a Leaf Blade, decent little chunk of damage. Now, also, this isn't a Shadow Gliscor, this is a regular Gliscor, so you can see the fast moves are adding up a lot slower, even though they're still double super effective, but also, this means that they can survive 2 Leaf Blades, whereas a Shadow Gliscor can't survive 2 Leaf Blades. So, it adjusts the matchup a little bit, but it kind of adjusts it in nobody's favour, because they're a little bit more bulky, we're a little bit more bulky. We're going to get to this Leaf Blade and force a shield out of them, which is absolutely fantastic. So it seems like a bad matchup. It's not. In the 0 shields, Virizion takes that round. But they got a ton of energy. We're going to have to give that shield back right now because this could be an Earthquake. It is. Very, very good shield. We've got a ton of energy. What are they coming in with? Here's Cobalion. We're going for the Focus Blast. Let it go through. Go on. You know you want to. Boom! Cobalion absolutely annihilated. Jellicent in the back and another surrender. I tell you what, when people let Focus Blast through, 90% of the time they just quit the match. So satisfying to land. And we would have been a good spot anyway, because we would have kept the Registeel away from Cobalion and had it lined up with Jellicent as well. Let's talk about another iffy matchup for this team, and that's going to be Buzzwole lead. And Buzzwoles are pretty unusual to see in the Ultra League, but they are quite strong and they're pretty tough to handle because they've got access to counter as a fast move, which is very, very powerful as a fast move. They got lunge, they got superpower. They're quite versatile, just really having to worry about flyers and Charizards and stuff like that. So we're assuming that they might have a Swampert in the back as well, which is even scarier for a Buzzwole lead. But you're going to see that you stop him with Virizion, just spam Leaf Blades, you're in a pretty decent position. You don't have to worry about really going for Stone Edges or anything like that in this matchup either. We're just going to no shield, softly lose the 0 shield situation, farm down with Ampharos and see what comes in. Muck's going to come into meters, right. Not too bad, but we're going to swap out to Registeel, just see what's in the back and decide what we want to spend our shields on. Dragonite comes in. Okay, we're probably going to spend a shield on Registeel just to block a potential superpower. We're not expecting the first move to be superpower, so if it is, this could be pretty surprising. It's not, it's the Dragon Claw. And this is the thing, if someone swaps into you, so they're locked in and can't swap out, it's unlikely they're going to throw a superpower first. They throw the superpower second, which we do shield. So A bit of a lucky call on our part, but also a calculated one. Very much going in our favour. We now get the attack drop on this Dragonite. And I don't think a superpower will take us out at this point, because they've thrown a superpower. We've double Zap Cannon debuffed, so it doesn't hit that hard. They do catch the Zap Cannon back on the muck. This isn't terrible, does a big chunk of damage, and now we can bring in Ampharos. And we should have just thrown that Brutal Swing when we had it there. We might have just taken them out and not had to spend a shield here. Doesn't matter that much. We've got a lot of energy. We're just hoping that a Volt Switch and a Brutal Swing is going to put enough work in on this Dragonite. We're not making the same mistake twice that we just made and risking them getting a charge move through before we get that Brutal Swing off. But they are going to get to this move here and tie with us. But also they're pretty low. And they're throwing Dragon Breath. So it's going to be a fast move down. Dragon Breath's adding up faster, but can we lock on down? We do. We're going to take a lock on down victory. Very close game and very well played to the opponent. GG. Alright, here we are at the last matchup, and it's also going to be the worst matchup because this is the ultimate core breaker for our team, Nidoqueen. And it's a shadow to make things even fucking worse. There is nothing we can do against the Nidoqueen really with this team. We're going to swap into Ampharos and start going for Brutal Swings. And honestly, Ampharos might be the best pick on the team for dealing with it just because of Brutal Swing. And that's horrendous because this thing's double resisting Volt Switch. It resists Registeel's charge moves. It's resisting Sacred Sword and double kick from Virizion. Everything's weak to it in some way or another. It's just so hard to deal with. And they farm us down before we get another Brutal Swing off. It's just horrendous, this matchup. You can see that we're floundering. We're going to have to take this Poison Fang. And we're just going to have to try and get Leaf Blades off now, which is even worse for us. They got to know that Nidoqueen is just a breaker for the entire team at this point, and they must be absolutely loving it. There's just nothing we can do here. Absolutely horrendous for us. So yeah, if you see Nidoqueen with this team, you've probably lost unless somehow you've already got the shields out of them and you've got a ton of energy to like dump into it with either Virizion or an Ampharos, because Brutal Swing does okay, Leaf Blade does okay, but because its fast moves are so oppressive as well, if they've got shields on that thing, there's just nothing you can do. It's going to run through your team like an absolute beast. And to make things worse, they've got Sandslash in the back with new move Draw Run. It's going to hit Registeel nice and hard, do enough work on us there. They still got a shield. They're just playing with games at this point. They can just sweep us away, and that's going to be a GG. But other than Nidoqueen, which is currently pretty rare in the Ultra League, I haven't seen very many at all, I'd say this team's really strong. It's got options for dealing with pretty much everything else in the meta. Very, very strong team. Let me know down below what you think of Ampharos, if you like the team or not, if you're enjoying the content. Maybe you're just playing a single type cup down in the Great League and you're just wanting to check out what's happening in Ultra League right now. Either way, shout out for watching this far. You're all absolute legends, and I will catch all you guys next time.